Hey there, and welcome to the Worthy Hours episode on how to find your productive hours. This might surprise you if you've recently started following my channel, but some of the first things that I made videos on were on decluttering your life, your schedule, your goals, not just your possessions. And so today, I want to talk about an approach that I've started using that I think has been helpful. And fair warning, if you've never seen my videos before, I approach life from a little bit of a different lens. I'm very much a supporter of minimalism, a practitioner of minimalism in my life, and slow living. I'm not trying to maximize every single minute, every single hour. I'm not trying to cram as many things into my time and my life as my space and schedule allow. I am actually trying to focus on quality rather than quantity. And so when I talk about finding your productive hours, it's not in a, oh, hey, you're going to 10x your productivity. It is, you know what? There are things in our lives that we have to get done sometimes. And it really helps to know when those things are going to be easier and quicker for us to do and when they're going to be slower and more painful so that we can hopefully err on the easier and quicker side for the things that will make the most impact. So that's how I'm approaching this topic of finding your productive hours. And I hope it's really helpful to you. It has been helpful to me. So let's jump in. There are two main ways to find your productive hours. The first is straight up time tracking, and the second is what I'm going to be calling energy and enthusiasm tracking. Now, both of these can be helpful. They're just basically ways of gathering data on what you're doing throughout your day. But if you are only going to do one, I would recommend doing the energy and enthusiasm tracking. And here's why. Your productive hours, or the time where you're most likely to be able to get things done easily and with less difficulty when you're at your most creative, all of those things, those have way more to do with how you are feeling energy-wise and emotionally than they have to do with it hitting a certain time each day. Unless you are a very regular and predictable person and you always eat the same things and you always sleep the same amount and you always get up at the same time and do the same things, it is going to fluctuate day to day what your productive hours are. And so if you are time tracking, say you have this whole list of what you've been doing in certain time chunks. Well, that is only so helpful as long as you know, first of all, how much you were able to get done on those things. And also what the factors were that contributed. So if you're doing energy and enthusiasm management, you have a little bit of an advantage because you can talk about how energetic you felt. You can also talk about how excited you were to be doing the things that you're doing. Now, some things you're just not going to be enthusiastic about, but you and I both know that there are some things, for example, my job. Some days I'm really excited to sit down and write for a client, and other days I am not. And sometimes that has to do with the project. But a lot of times it also has to do with what's going on in my life. Maybe I feel like I've crammed too much in and this deadline is looming over me. Well, then I'm going to have less enthusiasm than if I feel like I have plenty of time, and so on and so forth. For example, when I was tracking my energy and enthusiasm, there were days that I felt like I had 4 to 5 really good hours in which I could do my best work and things were easy and it flowed. But a lot of days I also had 2 if I was lucky. And most of the time my most productive hours were in the late morning, but sometimes, I'd take an afternoon nap or I'd just have a spike in the afternoon and that's when it would be. The important part here is not to nail down a specific time that you are at your most energetic, because I can guarantee that while it may be in a certain vicinity of time every single day, it's probably going to fluctuate based on, how you slept the night before, what is going on in your life, things like that. But that doesn't matter. All you need to do to find your most productive hours is to gather enough data that you can start to look for patterns, first of all, and second of all, that you can start to understand what it feels like when you are most likely to be at your happiest and most ready to work self. Now, I'm not saying that that's the only time you can get work done, but I think that once you learn what it feels like, it makes it much easier to structure your day so that you can go, okay, my most important work for the day the thing that I'm going to need to put the most effort and creativity and things into is this. And so I'm going to do my best to put that during those hours. And then I will fit everything else that I need to do that maybe requires less energy, less enthusiasm into other times when I'm not feeling quite as great. You want to look for patterns so you can kind of take a look at it and have an idea of when those hours will happen, and pay attention to your body and your cues so that you aren't overworking or overwhelming yourself. Okay, so let me give you an example from my own life. I sit down at either the beginning of my day or the beginning of my week, but usually the beginning of my day, and I make a list of about 3 things that I want to do that day. Okay, so let's take today's list for an example. I have record this video, I have make some brownies to take over to some friends, and I have finish some prep work for a class that I am teaching this week. I then can look at that list and I can go, okay, for what I want to get done today, what's the most important thing? What requires the most creativity, the most enthusiasm? And it is clearly the video that I'm recording right now, right? So that is the thing that I want to do when I have the most energy, the most enthusiasm, when roadblocks are less of an issue, because I want to make sure that I get that done. Brownies, that's easy. I can do that whenever, however I'm feeling, pretty much. I mean, unless I'm literally taking a nap, I can do it. And the class prep as well, like all of the thinking parts I've already done. It's just the, printing things off and making sure that everything is organized. And so that does require some energy and concentration, but it doesn't require the most. Obviously, your list is going to look different depending on who you are and what's going on in your life. But I encourage you to think about it because, something like cleaning your house, you probably don't need to do that when your energy and enthusiasm are at your highest. You might not want to do it when it's at your lowest, because then you might not end up doing it. But play around with it and see what you can do, and also what you can do to take your energy up during the times where you need to get things done, but you just don't feel like it. So for example, sometimes moving your body helps, sometimes listening to something that you really like. I have actually an entire episode on this where I talk about getting more things done by making them fun. So I am just going to go ahead and link to that right here. This is not a life hack that's going to help you get more and more things crammed into your day. That's not the point of this. That's not really what it's going to work for, because you only have so many of those hours where you are able to do your very best work. And you have to pick and choose what is going to happen in those hours. And that for me is the beauty of it. Yeah, it'll help you get things done, but it really forces you, me, all of us to come to terms with the fact that we only have so many hours and we can only do so many things. We cannot always get everything done that we dream of doing, but we can do our best to be strategic about it, to be easier on ourselves and be gentler on ourselves. And I think that that is really worth doing. Some other advantages to being more in tune with when you are able to get your best work done is that you don't have to keep working against yourself to get things done as often. We've all been there, and I'm still there plenty of days where a deadline is approaching or something is happening and you have to push through. And that's life. But if you could have fewer of those days, wouldn't your life overall feel more relaxed and slowed down and great? Another advantage is that you will be forced to look at what you can actually get done in a day, like I mentioned before. And that's very freeing to realize that you have limits and to be able to embrace them instead of just constantly trying to shove more and more into your day and speeding your pace of life up exponentially. And then finally, in my time figuring out when my most productive hours are and trying to schedule my time accordingly, I have felt like I get more things done in a week. And not like I accomplish more, but like I get more things over the finish line. I get them completed and off my list, which gives me space to breathe and is actually really satisfying. So I hope that you have enjoyed this episode. I would be remiss if I did not tell you that a lot of the concepts that I'm talking about in this video actually come from At Your Best by Carey Nieuwhof. So I will link to it in the description. It's a good book. It's not so much from a slow living perspective, so you do have to watch for that when you're reading. He talks a lot about like, what can you do with your extra hours? And to be honest with you, following his methods have worked in making me more happy with how I'm getting things done having a better time, but it hasn't necessarily freed up, like the 8 hours or whatever that he was promising per week. But anyway, if you are interested in other videos on holistic productivity, I will link to some on one side of my head or the other. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.